You ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
Excellent. Much has been said about this massive 900-page budget bill that squeaked out of the Senate Tuesday morning after an all-night filibuster and is now working its way through the House for a July 4th signing by the guy who's the president. Get this. The entire ICE budget is currently $3.4 billion. And they've overspent their budget already because they send these masked people all over the place. This bill is giving them $45 billion just for detention facilities and another $22 billion for transportation and hiring. If this bill passes, wrote Aaron Reichlin Melnick, I'm not sure I said his name right, on social media, it could make ICE the nation's largest jailer, with more funding for detention than the entire Federal Bureau of Prisons. UNLV Immigration Clinic Director Michael Kagan published Melnick's quote on his Substack, which was called The End of the Beginning, in which he argues essentially that, oh, yeah, we ain't seen nothing yet. So I invited him to come with me, and he's sitting right here next to me on screen, although we're in two different places. Michael, welcome.
Good to be here. Bad
Uh,
topic, but good to see you.
so let's start with this $45 billion given to ICE. Why should I not think of this as akin to Goering and Himmler creating the Gestapo and the SS?
I'm not really going to make much effort to convince you that you shouldn't. It's like the 45 billion is only for detention. That is a 13-fold increase
hmm
in the amount of money ICE has for detention. You gave the dollars already. It's a roughly they're going to try to double the number of ICE officers and give them $20,000 signing bonuses. And the increased funding for transportation that's to actually carry out deportations, about a 19-fold increase. These are just increases. I mean, most government funding increases for a program are more incremental. I mean,
hmm
this Aaron, who said this could transform American society, I think is right. I mean, this is creating a monster, that a beast that
hmm
we've not seen before, right? I mean, this is the kind of increase you look at in terms of like the scale of the army in wartime, right? So it will transform American society, and it will create a enforcement apparatus that we probably can't fathom because we're just not used to it, right? So what we have that's why I said,
We have to look up the history of Chile
yeah,
to,
something like
or
that. Like to
Argentina.
be, I think, there's no definition of what it means to be a police state, but part of it is just the omnipresence of a repressive government force. And we don't have something quite like this
hmm
especially from the federal government, uh,
hmm
in the United States. So what I said on my Substack was that basically everything we've seen from ICE so far is just a pilot project. It's just experimentation of what they might do. We are beginning a new phase now, and it is scary.
It is scary. We have moved into America's Holocaust. Would you disagrue with that?
Look, I try not to use Holocaust analogies because
Mm.
it stands alone. Even among genocides, the Nazi Holocaust stands alone, maybe only the Rwandan genocide, and so I don't want to
Mm.
go there. But you can do plenty of bad things before you get to the Nazi Holocaust level. I think that actually one of the problems we've had in the United States is that we've actually, in some ways, we need to do a lot more Holocaust education, but we actually need to do a lot more fascist and authoritarian education, and we need to
Mhm.
understand that the Nazis are actually only one variety of authoritarianism, and even only one variety of fascism. So we can have a very scary outcome, including with a lot of deaths and a lot of suffering, without, say, gas chambers at Auschwitz.
Yeah, Ruth Ben-Ghiat has been talking about this a lot. That the authoritarianism that we're seeing here has a lot more to do with authoritarianism we've seen in Latin America, like in Chile and Argentina
Yeah,
in
or
the
even if you want to
1970s.
even if you want to go to the 30s, I think you'd want to look more at Spain or Italy, right?
Mm,
Mussolini, and especially if Mussolini had, ended up being influenced a lot by Hitler, but he was a fascist, probably had more direct parallels to Trump in certain ways. The other thing I just want to note, if I really want to scare myself, is the fact that we're early, and so um, if you were to look, we look at the Nazis from a post World War II, we know what they did, but
mhm,
it's if you want to understand what we're living through, you have to look at what did people know in July 1933, and if you look at through that lens, you'll find probably even more parallels, which just illustrates how dangerous,
mhm.
because you can still follow a lot of different paths, ranges of bad,
Right.
but we can't foreclose the absolute worst.
When I say the Holocaust, we're moving towards the Holocaust, no, we have not built the gas chambers yet. We're just starting to build the first concentration camps.
Yeah, right.
And I'd like to get your opinion on this alligator Alcatraz concentration camp. Oh, and the T-shirts they're selling.
Yeah. Look, ICE detention centers have always been horrendous. We have very poor due process, and they are work. A lot of the pilot project I described has been a lot of experiments in how can we get even less process than what we already
Mhm.
have.
Mhm.
Terrible. We already have terrible conditions in immigration detention. People who have been in state prison for serious crimes will usually say state prison is better in a bunch of ways than ICE detention. And so this is just designed to be worse. I think the other thing with the alligator part and the alligators and the snakes and the merch, I think this is actually where you get into a real fascism. This is real fascism, because
Mhm.
it's not just it's taking pleasure in it and inviting supporters to take pleasure in it. It's pornography,
Mhm.
right? Do you like to watch?
Mhm.
And that is deeply unhealthy, right? So whatever one thinks about, say, criminal justice, I think generally a lot of people might agree that even a democratic free society needs to have some prisons, right? And uh, there are people who would debate that, but I think that's nearly a consensus. That doesn't mean, though, a democratic and free society loves its prisons or sells T-shirts about the prisons or is
Or
happy.
exalts in the torture that happens in the
In
prisons.
fact, we're scared of them, and we set up a lot of law to regulate them. A lot of our rule of law is about understanding the government is going to have these really powerful and scary possibilities and powers. We are going, including to be able to lock people up for long periods of time and take them away from their family. We need to regulate that in a democracy, not take pleasure in it. And what we see with the t-shirts and the travel mugs is like it's an invitation to take pleasure in this. That is very dangerous because
I
it's so incredibly dehumanizing.
I totally agree, but this didn't happen overnight. Like, I
No,
remember September 2021, 2001, right? Sitting there watching the towers go down. Sitting there watch. I was sitting actually watching it when the second plane hit. I was asleep when the first plane hit. Um, but I had to convince myself that this was real, that I
hmm
was not watching a movie.
yeah,
And this is from a cultural perspective, and I have been a cultural critic most of my career. This is what I have been kind of like seeing happen over the last 30 years, right? We do happy violence,
yeah,
and a plane going into a tower before 2001 would be perfectly fine to put into a movie, right?
right,
And people being in concentration camps with alligators would be a great plot for a movie, right?
yeah,
We have sent people to Hollywood who have thought increasingly about more violence porn, and that the literary community has also picked up, that wouldn't happen in real life. So I feel like we've sort of anesthetized people to that, but also, social media has sped it up. We are not where Nazi Germany was in 1933. We we're here in 5 months, but we're really not. It's been happening for a long time,
Yeah.
and it's just finally getting, sort of like juiced. And it is playing on our innate biases, our innate racism.
Yeah.
And that has been sort of like a thing here in society for a long time. So there's a part of me that's like, well, this was going to happen. Like, and let's see what happens on the other side. I don't, I'm still fighting against it. I'm still writing about it. I'm talking to you, but there's a part of me that's just like, I don't want to see my friends die, um, but, or my family die, but I don't. We've been moving towards this space for a long time, and nobody has noticed. No, that's not true. Many people have noticed, and those of us who have spoken out and said our prison systems are broken, our immigration systems are broken, what have you, we're moving towards fascism, have been pushed aside. Nobody wants to actually believe that stuff, and people still are not believing it.
That's right. Yes, because
Huh.
everything's normal in your own time,
Right.
right?
Good point. Yeah.
It only looks exotic from a distance.
I feel like that we are Cassandras.
Yeah, and I think on immigration, I sort of feel like more people are seeing it now, right? I mean, I can see it in the polls that people are like, the number of people saying, wait, I didn't vote for this. And again, a lot of us are like, there's a response that I think is kind of intellectually sound, like, well, actually,
We
you
did.
did vote for it. And actually, one thing I'll say, Donald Trump, especially second term, mostly keeping promises. That's sort of a media trope, right? But like, there are promises you don't want people to keep, right? So like,
Right,
uh, when someone says I could kill you, we don't really want people to follow through on that promise. So
right.
um, so I mean, and I think we've talked before, and we could talk again about why is it people are seeing it now and they didn't see it in October, November last year. Even though I don't really think actually much of this is all that surprising. But I guess for those of us who've been warning how dangerous it is, I think more people are seeing it. The question is what to do, and is it too late? And I think because I think all we can do. I was just talking to my daughter about this. To some extent, all there are things I can do as a lawyer, so long as courts are relevant, and who knows how long that lasts.
Indeed.
Um, and in some ways, I'm kind of privileged that way, in that I can channel my anger and fear at work every day. Now, I know not everyone has the opportunity to do that. I think protests matter. I think speaking out matters. I think we've become too cynical about, well, what will happen from this. Even sort of the critique of what is performative, I think, has gone sort of too far. Right? There's a valid critique of when people are just sort of displaying, well, Pride Month is a great example for performative like politics, right? Like before, like showing rainbows and like there, I've done it, and like
We
um,
invented performative.
and then, there is, and it's not that there's no value in it, but of course,
Right.
the real value is like, are you willing to sacrifice anything? And sacrifice could mean anything from, will you take a few hours out of your day to go to a protest when you could watch the game instead, right? Will you would and then other things that we're seeing are being really important. Would you be willing to sacrifice anything institutionally for what you said you believed
Meaning
in?
what?
I think the two main targets of this era, the most intense, have been immigrants and transgender people.
Mhm,
So let's talk about transgender people for a minute. University of Pennsylvania the other day, right?
mhm.
Basically, completely caved, right?
Yes, they did.
Yeah, and this makes a lot of sense actually. To before we condemn the president and the board of trustees of the university, so you're saying all I have to do is give this other swimmer the record and say that we'll never allow a transgender person on a sports team again, right? Under any circumstance. And then you won't threaten all of the grant money we get from the federal government. And you have a whole bunch of people telling you how much good is done by that grant money, how many
Right,
people are employed, how
right.
much how close we are to cures of key diseases, et cetera, right? And it's millions, millions actually at Ivy League. Sometimes it's, as we've seen, maybe billions of
Billions, yeah.
dollars. and just for a few swimmers, right? So then like the so it's irresistible institutionally. But if you believe that people matter, then you have to also think that people are not disposable, right? So I can negotiate, right? There's think money is a good example usually. Like if you and I are having a financial dispute, or like the president of the university is having a dispute with the union, you can split that baby sometimes, right? You can be like, all right, what if your copays on your health insurance are going to be $25 instead of $30, or and so forth. We can, and everyone will feel a little frustrated, but that kind of negotiation is necessary. But it's different. Well, let's go back to the Nazis. It's different if someone says, hey, university, listen, we don't want to cut off all of your very valid research funding and lead you to lay off your whole staff. All you have to do is expel your Jewish students.
Yes.
Or let's say, you know what, I'm a reasonable anti-Semite. Here, just expel half of them. You used to have too many. Whatever. Fill in the blank. This is
Yeah.
what's being done to transgender students right now,
Right.
essentially. And you can see how, as long as it's offensive when I say Jewish, because we've learned, oh, no, no, no. But in that
Right.
that was a lot more acceptable, right? It was more like, yeah, the Jews, I think they're okay, but I see where people are coming from, was like a mainstream dinner party thing people would say, right? So that's how people are about transgender people. I don't really want to hate on anyone, but it is, like
Makes me
it's something
uncomfortable.
reasonable people are debating, so it seems reasonable to throw them away.
Mhm.
Same with immigration, because, well, reasonable people don't like illegal immigration, etc. And what about the ones who commit a crime? It's because it's within that realm of reasonable people could disagree. These people are expendable. And that is when I was talking about the difference between being performative. Oh yeah, we said we welcomed anyone until there was a cost.
Yes. Um, for me, the line is, and I've been saying this in journalism all the time, that you do not undermine people's humanity
Right.
to govern. You do not undermine people's humanity to do a story, right? I would not do a story on transgender people's right to exist, right?
Mhm.
If you are so problematic that you actually don't think transgender people exist, then that's your problem. I am not going to center myself and my journalism between a transgender person and somebody who doesn't think that they have a right to exist, or
Right.
that they're making it up or whatever. I think that we have undermined people's humanity too much as a society, and certainly in my profession, that is where we have put ourselves.